Hi, I'm John from OurHomeFromScratch.com, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to install a chair rail molding. I'm going to show you how to install it at an angle downstairs and with end caps.
Okay, let's get started. This is the landing on my steps. When you first walk in the house, you see my set of steps going up to the second floor, and this is the little landing there. And I'm going to be installing chair rail on that landing and then down the steps. First thing I did was I measured up about 36 inches up from the floor in a couple places, and then snapped a blue chalk line between those pencil marks. And I did that all the way down the steps. Okay, so measured up 36 inches from the molding right above the steps, whatever that measurement was, and snap the chalk line. So you can see that sharp corner where those two chalk lines meet. So now I know exactly where this chair rail will be installed, and that line will correspond to the top of the chair rail. So the first piece I'm going to install, this piece of trim just like I did my baseboards in the last baseboard video. And if you saw that, you know that I try to avoid using tape measures as much as possible and use the actual wall itself to mark the lengths and all that. So let's start with the first piece. I'm going to use some adhesive caulk, and I'm going to square off the right side of this molding. Okay, it's cut flush right against that wall. And I'm going to line the top of that molding up with the chalk line. And then I'm going to take a finish nail gun. All right, I like to use finish nailers for chair rails because a chair rail is thick. It's maybe an inch or so thick, and the finish nail gun shoots nails that are around 2 inches or so long. So it goes right through that fat, meaty part of that molding. I'm going to pin that right side down. All right, and then I can take my level out and raise or lower the left side to make sure it's lined up with the chalk mark, but it also make sure it's level. It's a double check. That's the most important part. Okay, and then once I have it held level, I'll put a couple more finish nails in it. All right, so the left side of this will have a simple miter and an end cap. All right, now this is the part of the video that I think you'll get the most out of. I want to show you how to figure out what the angles are on any piece of molding, but in particular, I want to figure out what angle I need to cut this joint here at. This is where the molding, the chair rail molding, starts to turn down the steps. So what I need to do is figure out what that angle is first, and once I have that angle, I can divide that angle by 2, and that is what I need to cut it to. So I'm going to use a t-bevel here, and I'm going to line up the straight edges in this t-bevel with the chalk marks, okay? And I'm going to use this t-bevel along with my miter saw to figure out what I need to cut this to. I don't need a protractor. There's not a lot of complicated math. It's pretty straightforward, and I want to show you how to do that. All right, so I'm just going to take another second here and make sure my t-bevel's lined up to both the vestibule line and the line that goes down the steps. All right, so once all that's set up, I'm going to figure out the first angle. All right, angle number 1. Angle number 1 is what that molding sweeps through. That's what I need to figure out. If I can figure out angle number 1, I divide angle number 1 by 2, and that is what I need to cut the molding at. So how do I figure out angle number 1? Well, it turns out I can use this T-bevel. I can lock it to the angle based on those chalk lines, and then I can figure out angle number 2 for my miter saw. So I can take this T-bevel, I can lock it on that chalk line, figure out angle 2 by laying it on the miter saw, just by unplug. The miter saw is unplugged. I lay the T-bevel down on the miter saw just like this, and I can figure out angle 2. So I'm going to flush it against the back fence. I'm going to turn the miter saw to wherever I think that best lines up with that second edge, and whatever that gauge says, great. That's angle number 2. So I figured it from my miter saw, angle number 2 is 54 degrees. Now, if you remember some basic 8th grade or 9th grade geometry, that means angle number 1 has to be 36 degrees because it's 90 minus 54. Okay, 36 degrees. That I know number 1. Angle number 1 is 36 degrees. I know what I need to cut that molding to. I divide 36 by 2, it's 18 degrees. So you can repeat this simple process anywhere in your house. Baseboard molding, in this case chair rail molding, window molding, anything you got to do. You can use a T-bevel, figure out angle 2 from using your miter saw, subtract 90, you get angle 1, divide that by 2, boom, you're right there. So I know it's 18 degrees. I'm going to do a practice run. I always do a practice run on these little complicated angle cuts. with some scrap. So this is just a couple pieces of scrap, cut to 18 degrees, looks perfect. All right, I'm good to go. All right, so now continuing on with the molding installation, I am going to cope the left side of this, and that's I already did that. If you want to see how to do coping, check out my baseboard video, but the left side is coped to match the left side, or that first piece we installed, and I'm going to repeat the process I did before. Put a little bit of glue and nail this in. First though, I'm going to leave this long, okay, and I'm going to use a pencil right where that intersection is the chalk line to mark where my cut should be. All right, I'm not using a tape measure. This is the most accurate way to do this. So I already have the left side of this molding pre-coped, and I'm leaving it long, mark with the pencil, cut it to the angle it needs to be, cut it to that 18 degrees, and there we are. So now I know this fits because I just, it was on the wall. I didn't use a tape measure. Man, it's just so much easier. So again, a little bit of glue, a couple finish nails, and this piece is good to go. All right, now for end caps. Let's talk about end caps for a second. I'm going to, for this first part of this section here, I'm installing that piece that runs down the steps. And if you'll notice, the very end that's staring you right in the face, the very end of that chair rail, I'm going to put an end cap on there because I think they look much better than just a square cut. All right, so what I did was I cut that end at a 45 inside cut. So you can see it's cut. It's kind of missing an end there. It's cut at 45 degrees. So what I can do to put an end cap on that is I can take a piece of scrap, and let's say this is the right side of the chair rail molding we're looking at here. I'm going to cut the left side of the scrap at that same 45 degree inside cut. And then I'm just going to, using the squaring up the miter saw so it's back at 0 degrees, I'm just going to chop the tip off of that 45 degree cut. So if that makes sense, what I'm basically doing is pretending like the end of this chair rail molding is hitting a corner and wrapping around a wall or wrapping around a corner and just chopping the tip of it off. And that's it. So if that's a little confusing, I can always do a separate video dedicated to how to do end caps and this stuff. But you really just, I'm putting an end cap on the right side, take a scrap piece of wood, go to the left side, cut it at a 45 degree angle, and then just chop the tip off straight, and it'll fit right in there. So again, this is installed with a little bit of glue, a little bit of construction adhesive, and some finish nails, and that completes that upper part of the chair rail. I already have the end caps pre-cut here, all right, and you get to see what they look like, just like that. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's from the right side. There's the left side, and you can see it's just a little piece of the other side mitered and cut straight. So to get that installed, I'm just going to use some construction adhesive and a little bit of painter's tape to hold that in place. I don't need to nail it. You can if you want, but switch to brad nails for that nail. Otherwise, your finish nails could slice it up or cut it in half because it's a small piece. So yeah, in this case, I'm just going to goop it up with a little bit of glue, slide that in, and if you get it in there nice and tight, actually the pressure just from you squeezing it in there will probably keep it in place. But I get a little bit of glue squirting out here, so I'm probably just going to take that off and clean the glue up and try putting that back in. But this is, again, don't go crazy with this. A little bit of glue's fine there. And again, I'll throw some tape on that, and then once the glue sets up, man, that thing ain't going anywhere. Plus, I'll go back over it and I'll caulk it. I'll put some painter's caulk all along the top and bottom of the chair rail, and then again at all those intersections and the corners. So you can see how great that looks. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but like just the process of putting an end cap on that, it looks great compared to like just chopping it square. And it's not hard to do, but we have an obligatory bald spot. Every video should end with a bald spot. So that's all there is to that, folks. Let me know if you have any questions on that.
Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. In our next video, I'm finally going to get around to installing shadow boxes below these chair rails all through our vestibule. So we will see you then. Thanks.